ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no way, with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot.
Excuse me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, the #1 sports information program in America, the Breakfast Bankroll, with your host, the sports broker, Jeff Dawson.
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it is Monday, April 14th, 2025. Welcome to the Breakfast Bankroll with Mr. Beam 'em Up, Scottie Webb. As I stated last week, I'm going to bring Scottie. Scottie's going to be the bookends. Scottie will start the week with a weekend recap, talk about what he saw, what he didn't see, and, of course, Monday MLB and the series leading up to the Friday afternoon appearance for the MLB version of Friday Night Lights, Friday night, and then, of course, the weekend there. So, I'm going to keep this brief because around 4 o'clock, myself and Riley Magnuson will be back for the closing bell. We call it Reentry Monday. Thank you, Mr. Felger and Maz, stealing that phrase there. Talk about the weekend, talk about UFC. We're going to talk about, of course, the Masters. And it absolutely amazing weekend and week at the Masters. They rarely disappoint, and just the roller coaster the last 48 hours, whether you're a Rory fan, a DeChambeau, and if you don't know now, you know. The Masters doesn't start till the back nine on Sunday, and it truly did. Rory started the day, 2-shot lead, 2 holes later, he's down 1. Go to the fridge, make a couple sandwiches, get yourself a couple cool beverages, come back, and Rory's up 3 and then 4. Some of the greatest shots you'll ever see, especially with that pressure. And then it looked like me, was 88 yards out. He's not even aiming to the right. He's aiming far left. And like me, I look up, it looked like he hit it on the toe. I guess chunked it into the water. Missed a short putt. But anyways, I'm not here to recap the message. I'll do that this afternoon. First and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to WagerWire at googleplay.com. Zach, Travis, Guy, Amber, Jay, Matt, myself, Caro Bucks. Download that app. We'll take good care of you. And I got a ticket. I got 2 in, and I can't wait to talk to these guys at 1:30. because I got 2 legs left, 25 to make 18,000. I got the 2 hard ones in, believe it or not. I did this 2 months ago. Florida Gators plus 800 to win the national title, and Rory McIlroy to win the Masters at plus 750. I got OKC to win the West minus 130. And then I have the Boston Red Sox to win the AL East plus 4 something. But 25 got us about 18,000. So I'm going to have some fun with that. Viva Tequila Seltzer, 6 flavors in all. The East Coast is Cuckoo for Coconut. And last but never least, Mr. Terry Smith at AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Introduce yourself. Go follow him on Facebook. Head on back to AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Steaks, chops, seafood, appetizers, wine, you name it, he's got it. 4 subscription plans as well. Set it and forget it every 30 days. Terry will deliver you your protein for the month. The only thing you'll need is an extra propane tank. So without further ado, Mr. Scottie Webb. What's up, champ?
Man, what's going on with you? That sounds like some fun golf, some fun things going on over the weekend, all good.
Yeah, well, my Boston Red Sox, thank God for Cy Crochet. I mean, they can't hit themselves out of a wet paper bag. Scotty, I'm not going to lie. The landscapers are here today, and the comedy is for 1 week straight, rainy, raw, high 30s, low 40s, and we have the sun, and it's 52 degrees. And they said the first place we're coming is to Jeff's Complex. And so they're here doing their spring cleanup, but it's so good to see the sun. But I've been complaining to you. The cold weather back east, the rawness, some of these bats. The almighty Dodgers start 9-0. Have you seen what they've done of late? The list is endless. Welcome. What'd you see over the weekend?
Well, I think that there's a couple things, right? So, I think you can say the Cubs are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're throwing a fill-in pitcher yesterday. Colin Ray. Not that he's a bad guy or anything. But he's an average, the best starting pitcher against Glass now and that lineup, and they beat him. So too bad for the Cubs, man. I mean, I sit here and go, this team needs a break in terms of who they play, and all of a sudden they go around and they play a team that's undefeated at home and 14 games. So they got San Diego and Cease tonight. So that team just is facing all kinds of great quality teams. We talked about that last week. So I think.
Can I interject right there?
Yeah.
Because obviously the devastating news yesterday, Justin Steele out for the year. You've already talked about this. Pitchers don't grow on trees, of course. Any short-term, any mid-term, any long-term things that they can do? They're not going to replace Justin Steele. Kind of take every 5th day that takes away. Are we getting Justin Steele or the aluminum can? I'm going to have to come up with a new one there. But there's no Kerry Wood, Mark Pryor, or Rick Sutcliffe down in the minors, correct?
No, I'm looking at Cubs stuff right this second. Let me look at the projected numbers. They don't have in that division. What separates the Cubs is they can hit. They can hit, and they don't have. I'm trying to get to the pitchers here. Hang on. Well, they get Javier Assad to come back. And I think he comes back, I don't know, in another month maybe. So they're going to have to hold on until he comes back. But they got nothing. I mean, Justin Steele, the way it looks now, it's Imaga, Tyon Boyd, Ben Brown, who's going to, whatever. Javier Assad and Colin Ray's going to have to fill in, and then they're going to throw Jordan Wicks every once in a while. So they don't have – so they're going to either have to make a deal or do something if they want a top-line pitcher because, Shota and Monaga pitches well, but he's not like if you were to put him out there and against Yamamoto or something, which they have already matched up. Who do you think is going to win that game? Well, it's going to be Yamamoto, right? I mean, if you put him out there against Dylan Cease, or you put him out there against all these other pitchers that, put him against the Philadelphia Phillies and Wheeler and these guys, he's going to be the underdog. He's not like he's like a super number two. And so, in my opinion, the Cubs don't have a number one. So, they're going to have to find a way. And the truth is, in the division they play in, the Brewers and the Reds and the Pirates, and I mean, holy shit, the Pirates and the Reds played each other, and theoretically they're roughly similar teams in how they're going to end up in terms of won-loss percentage. And the Reds swept them. The Pirates can't score. The Pirates can't hit. And if they don't have Paul Skeens on the mound, then they can't pitch either. So they don't have a whole lot to compete with to win the division. The Brewers are a team that is surprising currently, only in a sense that they're hitting the ball. They're scoring tons of runs. And they've got Peralta, so they got one pitcher. But I don't think they match up to any in St. Louis. They don't have any pitching at all, and they've been decent hitting. But all these are 500-ish teams, and I think the Cubs are better than that. So I don't think the Cubs are going to worry about not having Steele. And I think they got money. So maybe down the line, coming into the playoffs, they can find a guy.
Can they get creative? I'm not as their back end, their middle relief. Can they pull a raise? And when I say get creative, I always bring this name up. I'll bring it up to the trade deadline again. Mason Miller from Oakland. So in other words, you make a power move to strengthen your back end, which now you move Mason Miller to the back. Whoever was closing, you move to the 8th, and then you go with that back end strength that we saw the Phillies do a couple of years ago. You guys do it to every 5th day. You used to.
Yankees are doing it.
You created the bullpen game. Can you get creative if there's no starting pitching? Let's strengthen the back end.
Sure, those guys are always available. You can always go get relief pitchers in Major League Baseball. And it's just a matter of stacking up how many guys and trying to use them. Look what Cleveland does. Cleveland has no starting pitching, but they got a deep, good bullpen, and they run guys out there that can help them close games down the stretch. And then, you get lucky and score a run or two late in the game and you win. So I don't think that the Cubs couldn't do that. It's just a matter of what happens, when you have to throw a tie on today, these guys go out there, and sure, these are professional pitchers. So, there's times he's going to look really good, and he's not been terrible so far, but at the same time, I don't expect him to go out there and be anything more than, maybe a little bit above average type pitcher. And, they're asking him to face Dylan Cease today. So in the lineup that the Padres are throwing out there, and the Padres, I think the Padres are one of the teams that are surprising me a little bit in terms that, remember last year, everybody talked about the Padres. This year, they're not talking about the Padres at all. And look what they're doing. The Padres are one of the best teams in all of baseball. They're undefeated at home. We'll see how they do here. Now, they haven't played the quality of competition yet that some of these teams have, and now they're going to get the Cubs, so we'll see how that shakes out for them. But Michael King, yesterday's complete game. I don't know what else to say. I mean, they got a steal in that deal. That was a deal that he was part of the Soto stuff. And as far as I'm concerned, the Yankees got Soto for 1 year, and now they got Michael King, who could be a top line pitcher for them. Cease is their number one guy, but in terms of data, numbers, statistics, and all that, King is just as good. So I think, they haven't even had Darvish yet. So, who knows what's going to happen with him. And if he can come back and be halfway decent for half the season, that wouldn't be a bad thing for them either. They had Waldron last year. Remember that knuckleballing kind of weird guy? Well, he's not easy to hit. And, if he's on, he's pretty good. And if he's off, he's not real good at all. But I don't know what kind of depth that the Padres are going to end up with pitching. But, they're going to end up getting Merrill Jackson, back, and they're going to get their lineup more secure in terms of depth and power and strength, because they're missing those guys. Tatis is off to a start where, hey, look, he's an MVP kind of guy, and I think people forget that. So I think the Padres are surprising to me as a team that has jumped out to the start that they have. Of course, they played the Rockies a bunch of times, and the Rockies over the last week, Jeff, they've scored I think I don't even know if I think it's like 12 runs in 7 games. I mean, they're scoring like 1.7 runs a game, and you think about it. Obviously, if you don't score runs, you better pitch, and they don't got any pitchers either, and they don't have a bullpen. So that's. That team I have listed as the worst team in baseball, and it's not even close. The Rockies. I think Oakland is better than they have been. I think the Angels are turning into a team that people are kind of liking. And look what the Marlins did this week to the Nationals over the weekend. They took 2 out of 3. They're 500 team right now. Had 15 games in or so. They're like 8-7 or something like that. So I don't like the Marlins either, but I mean, at the same time, I didn't expect them to be 500. The Rockies, I think, won 3 times.
Well, again, San Diego 13-3. No one had the Giants on their bingo card 11-4. The Dodgers 11-6, 4-6, Scotty, in their last 10. The Diamondbacks 9-7. The Rockies 3-12. The Dodgers started out 9-0 and now 2-6 their last 8. Take a snapshot of the West, because again, I think it's smoke and mirrors. This Dodger team was projected to win the West by 18 games, with the Diamondbacks finishing second, with the Padres and the Giants there. You talked about the Cubs 11-7. Now the Reds 8-8. The Miracle Mets 10-5, the Phillies 9-6, the Marlins 8-7, the Nationals 6-9. Scotty, let's talk. Braves 4-11. They get a big shot in the arm with Strider coming back, and Acuna.
Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, and Acuna around the corner. You talked about the emotion. You talked about the lethargic. There's nothing there. I think they'll get that boost with Strider, just waiting for Acuna. Is it just a matter of time that this team finally wakes up?
Well, I think that it depends on who you are and how you look at it. Most people are looking at the Braves, and I would be. So if you remember 2 years ago, the Braves had one of the best offenses in all of baseball, and they did all this stuff, scored tons of runs, and you just couldn't beat the Braves. And they had decent pitching. They didn't have great pitching, they had decent pitching. So now I sit here, last year they went through that funk. They didn't hit last year. So you sit here and you come through this year and you go, well, they don't hit this year either. However, looking at the numbers over the last week, this is a team that I pull this up, right? Let me bring this over here. Offensively, over the last week, the Braves are 4th in offensive WAR, 5th in isolated power. It's a team that struggles to score runs. So if you kind of look at like what happens with them, they'll hit home runs with nobody on base. So they get those 1-run homers, and you're not going to beat a lot of teams scoring 1 run at a time like that. You need to score in lump sums. So I worry about this team, and it's that you still have to have guys that get on base, and then have the guys that drive them in. They don't have that guy that's at the top of the order that's on base all the time. They can't find the guy to play the position. Well, that's where Acuna comes in, right? Acuna, remember, he's a 40-40 guy, 40 home run guy, 40 stolen base guy, gets on base all the time. He's an MVP player. So, and I don't know if you're going to get that from him coming back from injury and all that stuff from this season or not. And if he's not that guy that gets on base for the Zunas and the Olsons and the Rileys to drive them in, then I think the Braves are not as good as what everybody thinks they are. My opinion too is the bullpen for the Braves was supposed to be a strength. I don't know that it's as good as what everybody thinks it is, especially from what I've seen at the beginning part of the season. They have a hard time closing games out. I mean, Iglesias is their guy, and he still throws hard and does whatever. But did you know he was 38? I mean, he's 38 years old, Raisel Iglesias, and it's not that you can't be old and pitch, but at the same time, I think that that doesn't match up with what the Phillies can put out there or what the Mets can put out there. So I'm personally worried about the Braves. What they've won, 4 games, 3 games, something like that.
4.
4. Yeah. So when you start to think about it, they're 4-11. First 15 games. There's 160 games in a Major League Baseball, 162. So we're almost 10% of the season in, and they've only won 4 games. So think about. I looked at this. Where's my thing? I looked at this, and they are, of all the teams in the National League, they're already 6 games back, and take out the Rockies, because the Rockies are a minor league team. They're 9 games behind, and that's a good division. But they're 6 games back in a division that's pretty tough. You got the Mets and the Phillies up there, and I'm sitting there going, they really, I know it's early, and you can certainly make up 6 games, but there's a bunch of stuff out there that, if you started 3-11 or 4-10 or whatever the numbers look like, you don't make the playoffs. You've got a long way to go to get there, and this is a team that we're in the middle of April. Next week, if they're by the end of May, say, still not 500, that's a team that's going to have to shake things up or do something. Get a new manager in there, get some blood going on. Snicker at this point, he said that this might be his last season. I don't know. I'm a little worried about him just because. Matt Olson's a guy that can go out and hit 40 home runs and drive in 120 runs. But when is he going to do that? How strong does Ozuna continue to have to be? Riley is starting to hit now at third base. Albies was one of these guys they thought was going to be a superstar. Well, he has superstar tendencies. But if you look at his numbers, he's not a superstar. You got to get this team flowing and going. And Kelenic, that guy's. They got to go get players and get them to go. They made that big trade to get Sean Murphy from Oakland, and to be the catcher. And they got rid of Travis Dearnard and all that stuff. He hasn't. They come up in big spots, Jeff, and they don't come through, except for Ozuna. The rest of them strike out, or they pop out, or they do whatever, and then the next time they come up, there ain't nobody on base, and they hit a home run. It's the most frustrating team because of what they could be and aren't, and it's a lot of. You remember back several years ago, when the Yankees had star players. They had A-Rod and some of these guys. They would do the same thing. These guys are, maybe this is a team that's out there that isn't team oriented, and they're personal people. Like they don't play stacked baseball. You know, they don't do the things like the Tigers. The Tigers are hard to beat, man. The Tigers are hard to beat because they play good baseball. They get guys on, they move them over, they score runs, they come through in the clutch, they pitch when they need to, and if they lose, they get beat. That, you know, because they don't have, you know, all these star players. But the Braves, maybe they're into that. I don't know. Hey, I'm a star player. I'll just do what I do, and you know, and hit home runs, and guys are on base. It's great. If they're not, then it's not my fault. I don't know. I mean, I'm worried about the Braves. And you know, maybe it's too early to start that, but numbers wise, and you know, systems that I use and stuff to help generate, you know, winning percentages, none of that stuff is being affected. They still think they're going to win 90 games. So it's you know, at some point, you know, they got to start winning or they won't win 90 games. And if you don't win 90 games in the National League, you might have a problem. Those are good teams in the National League, man.
And now we tiptoe over to the American League. The Toronto Blue Jays 9-7 lead the American League East by a half game over the Yankees 8-7. The Red Sox 8-9. Your Tampa Bay Rays 7-8. They play each other tonight. And my headliner was, can the Red Sox HOUCK the Rays tonight? And then Baltimore at 6-9. I said in the intro, Scotty, it's funny. I got a parlay that's alive and kicking real well right now, and I got two pieces left. OKC to win the West, and currently minus 155 at the circa to win the West, and the Boston Red Sox to win the American League East, and they were plus 425 when we did it. Long way to go. The East is tough. I mean, you know, to look at Toronto, no one had Toronto at least up front. Yankees, with all their pitching injuries, just being the Yankees. Red Sox, Rays, Baltimore. What do you make of the East right now?
Well, it's interesting. My numbers and the way everything kind of comes out, I still have Yankees as the best team. Now, that doesn't mean a whole lot because – I shouldn't say it that way, because they're not a 90-win team. I got them at 89 wins. I don't have anybody in the American League at 90 wins, not one. 89 is the best. And then after that, it's the Seattle Mariners at 86 and Houston at 86. And I've got the Red Sox at 85. So, but that all stuff fluctuates and changes and stuff. What's interesting, and I use base runs a lot. So base runs is a standings oriented thing, and it adjusts winning and losing based off of what should have happened, not in a Pythagorean sense. You know, hey Jay Barry, how you doing, brother? And in a sense that Pythagorean theory, Jeff, takes runs scored and runs allowed and says based off of how many runs you scored and how many that you whatever, that's how many wins you should have. So that's a pretty good way to look at things. But base runs also looks at things like how lucky of wins you had and ones you shouldn't have won and stuff like that. So it kind of adjusts them. And looking at that right now, if you were to look at base runs, Yankees are 10-5, Red Sox are 10-7. So they're basically neck and neck. The team that's struggling there is the Orioles are 6-9, and the Rays are 8-7, Blue Jays 9-7. So we talked about this Friday, I think. The Blue Jays are a surprise that nobody's talking about, and I think the Blue Jays are going to be there for a while. We'll have to see how they do. Like today's an interesting matchup against the Braves. They have that kid Easton who's pitching for them, and going against the Braves. And you know, this might be the last time that Holmes pitches out of the starting spot for the Braves, because I'm sure Strider's going to come in and knock him off that spot. But it's one of these spots where. What do you do with Toronto? Because Springer is having a great start. Bichette is hitting the ball, and they just signed Guerrero, and that team with those three guys can do a lot. If they can get some secondary performance from some of the guys, in the lower in the lineup, they can play defense halfway decent. That was the thing that made me mad about the Red Sox, Jeff. They made 5 errors the other night in one game, and I'm worried. That's the only thing that really worries me about the Red Sox. I don't think they're going to get Bello back, and they're going to get some pitching coming and some stuff like that. But I don't know what kind of defense they're going to play, and that can hurt them. And in a division that's going to be tight like this, stuff like that you can't. Thank God they didn't get swept by the White Sox, for God's sakes. I mean, that would have been terrible.
Well, I look at the rest of the American League again. Tigers sit up top in the Central. I had them preseason to win that division. It's starting pitching. Torkelson's off to a great start there. Indians 1 game behind. KC at 8-8. Minnesota 5-11, White Sox 4-11. But out west, you talked about the Angels 9-6. I'm not trying to be a smartass here. They go as far as how long Trout stays healthy. I think they lead the majors in homers. They're off to a great start. Rangers 9-7, Seattle 8-8, Houston 7-8, and the Athletics 6-10. And they're not your average Athletics. They got some timely hitting. There's the kid, is it Strodeman? The kid that
Sotomayor,
yeah, like at 6 homers. So the American League in general is going to be something here. I'm going to bring up Martin has a question. He goes, let me see here. He says the wind was wild in 1 inning when there were 2, should have been 3 throwing errors to first base. And the thing, Martin and Scottie, is the Sox tried to move Cassis in the offseason. They were really on the phone a lot with Seattle. They were trying to hold out for Gilbert or Kirby. It wasn't happening. Sox then stepped to the Castillo train. I thought that was the move that was going to happen. Roman Anthony's smoking the ball. They're almost like people back east are like, hey, maybe Anthony should start playing first base. Listen, we had problems with Devers, insert Bregman. When you got a young kid like Campbell at second, there's going to be issues there. And when your first baseman isn't picking, the balls that, a lot of the Gold Glove first basemen stop, it just compiles. And defensively has been a problem. Scottie, when we were growing up, how'd you win championships? It was up the middle. Catcher, shortstop, second base, and center field. The Sox aren't strong there.
No, and one of the things that I saw in that specific game that they made 5 errors, Sabo, and I don't know who he is very well. I didn't do a lot of research on Sabo. I know he's not the backup catcher, but Sabo, he had 2 catcher's interferences, which count as errors. And I'm like, I don't know who this kid is, but you can't play in big. I shouldn't say it this way. So let's say it the right way. So if you're competing for a division and you think you're a good team and you deserve the playoffs, you can't make mistakes like that against one of the worst teams in all of baseball. The White Sox. So I have Colorado as the worst team, and then the White Sox. So the White Sox are 29th in my world, and then these guys are 30th. Well, those teams be lucky to win 60. So both teams lose 100 games. And if you're the Red Sox, you can't afford to lose 2 to those teams. Obviously they got Crochet to pitch a really good game to win the one they did win. So the reality becomes is my concern with the Red Sox is I think they're going to hit. I don't like Cassis at all, and I hate the lineup. I hate the idea that you have to put Cassis 4th or whatever because, you got Bregman that hits in front of him and Devers that hit in front of him and say those guys get on base and you need a base hit, and there comes Cassis and he strikes out. And then you put Story, and then you have the new kid, whatever his name is,
Campbell.
Yeah, Campbell, and you have Abreu, right? And those guys is like it's like starting another lineup there. Get Cassis the hell out of there. Like he's a problem in a sense that he stops the flow of the game, let alone the performance of doing what he does. I think, and this is just me outside looking in from Florida. You're there. My opinion of Cassis is he's way overrated. He's not nearly as good as everybody in Boston thinks he is. He's not a superstar. He's a guy that doesn't belong on this team. This team is going places without him. They're better without him. And I don't really care who you put there. Just get him out of there. So it's some of these teams have guys like that. And I'm not trying to pick on him as being a bad person. He might be a great guy.
He's not.
So no, he's an asshole. So you follow what I'm saying, right? Like my thoughts is I think the Red Sox would do so much better by just moving him, changing their lineup flow, Trevor Story's off to a pretty good start. This is a kid that, they got him from Colorado, obviously he was hurt, but before that, when he wasn't hurt, he was an all-star. And he looks like he's playing to a different level this year, to maybe getting back to some of that. And if he's a flow that's going to be, every single team, and I say this every year, every single team needs RBI guys. And you got to have them. And Story's an RBI guy. So if you let him drive in the runs, you're going to be great. If you put Cassis in the middle of blocking that, you don't let Story do what he needs to do. And Story's not the next guy to come up and be a leadoff guy. Let him be the RBI guy and get Cassis out of there.
Well, we got a full slate today, Scotty. We got, of course, it's Paul Skeens Day. We got Cy Skubal on the mound. Going to give you the solo spot for about 15 minutes to break down any games that you might have in pocket. It's early, I know. First pitch, 6:40, 6:45, so no day boss baseball. But I'm going to put you front and center here to talk about a couple games, couple series, whatever you want to do, okay?
Yeah, no worries. It's baseball, man. I can make up stuff if I have to. No, I'm just kidding. So I haven't made any bets yet, Jeff. So what I've done so far this morning is all the things that I do. I've got all my reports made for how I quantify the pitchers and what I look at there, and I look at the offenses, and I make my numbers. And when I made my numbers this morning, now here's the one thing I will tell you guys: I use ProfitX more than I use any other betting place, and you got to check your state. I don't know if it's available up there, Jeff, in Massachusetts or not. I'm assuming it is. It's not available in Nevada. I know that. But ProfitX has great numbers, great lines. They're not dime lines. They're closer than dime lines, and they're in a lot of cases better than 5-cent lines. So anyway, I use their numbers. Pittsburgh was minus 196 there. And I'm going to sit here and advocate a couple things. When you find a team like Pittsburgh, you got to find a way to bet them, and that's where you're going to spend most of your time. So you have Paul Skeens today against the Nationals. The Nationals, they hit yesterday. They just didn't score. They had guys on base in the first 3 innings yesterday and hit 3 double plays and were knocked out of the innings and got Quantrill off the hook. And then Gore had a couple problems, and all of a sudden the Marlins beat them. I have a report that I run every morning, and the Nationals had 10 hits yesterday. The Marlins had 14 hits yesterday. Blue Jays had 16. I get a report that tells me 10 hits and or more, or 10 runs or more, or any teams that are going off of going for a series sweep. So obviously today's new series, so there won't be any sweeps there. But so what that tells me is Washington got a lot of hits yesterday. I wouldn't expect them to get a lot of hits today, and so you got to look for ways to find the value on trying to bet a Paul Skeens. Paul Skeens, his last time out, and everybody wants to complain about Paul Skeens' last time out. I heard a guy on VSiN last night. I don't know what I was watching, but maybe I woke up or something. I don't usually watch a lot of that kind of stuff. But a guy was saying, oh, it was his worst start of the year, worst start maybe ever. Well, it was his worst start of the year, but I use game score a lot, and game score 52 is an average start for any pitcher. So that's what he pitched. Again, 52. It's an average start. For him, that's a below average start. His previous start was a 77, and the one before that was a 61. So I would expect Paul Skeens to come out and throw well, and I would try to find a way to get some sort of team total unders looking at for Washington. I haven't looked at those numbers yet. So just in your mind, thinking about how do you do that, where you're looking at. I think Skeens will pitch deep into the game. Maybe you look at over outs or something like that as a spot for him. But you can't bet minus 200, minus 196. And you certainly can't play him on the run line, not because you don't think that he's going to shut down the other team, but the Pirates don't score any runs. The Pirates in the last week have scored 18 runs in 6 games. They ranked 30th in offensive WAR. They are minus 52% to an average offense against right-handed pitchers. So think about that. They're 52% worse than an average team. You can't bet on their offense. So I you just can only bet on Skeens in this game, and you just got to find a way. You can't bet on Lord for Washington. So I'm looking at Lord. By the way, he's a relief pitcher that they're trying to stretch out. He only threw 3 innings at max so far, so it's going to end up being a bullpen game for Washington against Pittsburgh. So if that gives you any thoughts or creativity to figure out what to do in that game, Roop and Walker for San Francisco. It's kind of an interesting matchup, in my opinion. I have it lined out as my number is Philadelphia minus 114, and the number that I saw at Profit X this morning was 108. So not a lot of value there. Not really something that I'm looking to bet into at this point because of 2 things. One, I don't think I want to bet on Walker right now. He's pitched 2 pretty decent games. Game score 55, game score 70. He's not that good a pitcher. And the other guy, Roop, game score 45, game score 61. I think he is an average to above average pitcher. And if you look at the offense right now, Philadelphia is 24th in all of baseball in the last week. So they're not hitting. In fact, when you break it out, they have one guy in offensive WAR over 1 for their all offense. So they got 4 guys in the negative category. So I don't like betting on Philadelphia here. So if I had to, and I haven't broke this down, so I would be looking San Francisco. I just don't have a value on San Francisco on the line right now. It doesn't mean I won't go there just because my line says whatever. I mean, I just find what I need to find to make some of the stuff work. The Yankee game with Kansas City, look, the number was minus 136 this morning at Profit X. I don't think that's going to stay. So if you want to bet Kansas City, you need to bet them early because I think people are going to be all over Kansas City and betting on them with Lugo. My number in the game in that spot is Yankees minus 103, just to give you an indication. I think there's good value in Kansas City today. Now, I will caveat that with the idea being that the offense for Kansas City is just as bad as anybody right now. They're 27th in offensive WAR. They're 28th in isolated power, which means obviously they're not hitting home runs. They're not driving in runs that way. But it's Carrasco. And you got to remember, Carrasco was a Cleveland Guardian for years and years. So these Royals have seen him. Lugo has pitched well. Let me get the number so you know. Lugo has pitched well against the Yankees. In his starts against the Yankees, he has a game score 65. So he's been dynamite against the Yankees. He's not been the greatest pitcher so far this year. He's got a game score 56 last time out, 53 time before that, and 43 before that. So he's a little bit above average pitcher going against a below average pitcher that's very hittable. Yankees used a lot of relief pitchers. This might be a good spot for Kansas City in terms of value. It's a great spot in terms of value. It's just a matter of whether you can stomach their offense not performing well. Bobby Witt's still doing a great job. So I kind of like Kansas City in that spot. Jeff talked about the Boston-Tampa Bay game. The number in the game this morning when I looked at it was Tampa Bay minus 114. My number is Boston minus 101. So I have as a pick 'em. So can kind of go either way. So minus 114 is not a huge significant deal, but I think that's value to Boston. My problem is that here's the problem. The problem is that Shane Baz, and Jeff will tell you that I've talked about him for 2 years. He didn't pitch that great last year, but he's pitching great now. He's got game score 60, game score 70. Okay, that's what aces do. And his xFIP is a 2.83, Sierra's a 2.8, his FIP's a 2.46, his xERA is a 2.7. It doesn't get much better than that. Now, having said that, these guys typically start a season going 3 games with some sort of this combination, an above average start, an average start, and a below average start. Baz has got 2 above average starts. He doesn't have an average start yet, and he doesn't have a below average start yet. Well, that's coming. His pitching performance doesn't indicate that it is, but it is. It's just the way it works. Every one of these guys will do that. It doesn't matter if you're just Tariq Skubal. It doesn't. It's even like Paul Skeens, 61, 77, 52, right? That's what happens every single time. It's just the way they do it. Pitchers are human. They're not robotic, so they can't go out there and throw their best every day. They don't feel good sometimes. Sometimes they get a stiff neck. Sometimes, their leg hurts, or sometimes, whatever. They got a stomach bug, and they just don't feel good. Their stuff doesn't move the way they want it to move. So I have concerns about betting on Baz tonight. Now, having said that, I don't mind the bullpen for the Rays. The Rays bullpen's been pretty good. And the biggest part that surprised me about the Rays so far, the Rays are number 1 in the last week in offensive WAR and number 2 in isolated power. They're hitting home runs. They like playing at Steinbrenner Field. They are scoring 4.5 runs a game. Red Sox are scoring 2. And remember, the White Sox just played the Red Sox. And I get it. The weather's been different. They're going to come in nice weather here. So maybe that livens them up. But game 1 in Steinbrenner Field, first time, the Red Sox been there. I find this hard to sit there and go, yeah, let's go with Red Sox. I think they're small value Red Sox. But I like what I see from what Tampa Bay's doing. They played the Braves and had a lot of pitching mismatches where the Braves had better pitchers. Sale was pitching against Boyle yesterday, the call-up pitcher for the Rays, and Sale got bombed. Gave up 4 runs to the Rays. So the Rays are doing really well. Aranda, for example, people don't know who he is, but Aranda's got home runs. Second baseman Lowe's doing great. Leadoff hitters just started hitting. They got guys in the outfield, Magnum you never heard of, Miser you never heard of. These guys are hitting. And if they're hitting, you support them. And HOUCK, who's going to be, required to go and beat them, he hasn't pitched his best yet. He's pitched his best time was his last time. His game score 63 last time out, 39 and 30 before that. I think Shane Baz is better than that, but we'll see what happens. The one thing I will tell you, I do this thing where I will take and look at a team's offense by player. And over the last week, I want to know how many players have an offensive WAR over one. Now, it's not, you're not going to get a whole lot in a week. So over one's quite a bit. And how many are -1 in that same time frame? And if I look at Boston has one guy offensive WAR over 1. They have 6 guys offensive WAR -1. So that tells you that their whole offense has been gathered around one guy performing well, and 6 guys in their offense are just dragging them down. Well, 6 out of a lineup of 9 guys is a lot. Let's flip that to the other side. The Rays have 7 guys offensive WAR over 1 and only 3 -1. And if you add them all up, right? So like Boston has a guy that's 2.2 offensive WAR. It's really pretty good. And then -1.4, -1.7, -2.1, 2.1, 2.4, 4.5. Those are all minus numbers. They are -12 offensive WAR. That's not good at all. That's really terrible, to be honest. The Rays, 3.3, 3, 2.9, 2.2, 2.1, 1.4, 1.0, all offensive WAR positive numbers. They are 10.7 offensive WAR positive as an offense. I can't bet against that. So when you kind of look at these numbers and you kind of start throwing stuff around, one of the biggest separations of all of the sport right now is offense. Used to be you can just sit there and go, okay, this is the better pitcher. All the offenses are about the same. Well, it's not the way it is anymore. Offense separates everything because you don't have but, maybe 3 guys at the top of the pitching category that matter. Scooble's one of them. Skeens is one of them, right? Crochet might be one of them. So when Strider gets back and he gets on his thing, maybe he's one of them. But other than those kind of guys, there's nothing else. They can't beat these guys, right? So offense is way more important than you might think, and especially because it's cyclical. It goes in cycles. When it's working and it's going well, it's hard to stop. So Rays are a pretty good spot maybe. At this Atlanta game with Toronto is kind of interesting because you got Atlanta with the Holmes relief pitcher. Going to go back to the bullpen. This will probably be his last start against Lucas. Easton Lucas is his name. Lucas is not a great pitcher, but he's had great performance so far. So he's made 2 starts, 65-70. Again, this is not a guy that's going to be up there. He's going to get hammered. And when you start to look at what's going on with the Braves are 4th in offensive WAR and 5th in isolated power over the last week. And the Blue Jays are 9th and 27th in isolated power. So where they're scoring their runs, they're just getting sequential hits, hit after hit after hit after hit, moving runners, doing different things to get the runs. So that kind of makes this an interesting matchup in a sense that I think that the Braves actually have better offense, but they don't have necessarily better pitching. But I don't think that Toronto's going to pitch well tonight. So it makes it kind of hard. My number on the game was Braves -117, and they got it at 105. Detroit, my number was 171, and it's 162 over at Profit X. My guess is it's more than that at other places. This is Scooble on the mound. Scooble, like Jeff's been saying, hasn't had necessarily the best of starts for the year for him. In fact, if you look at Scooble's numbers, his last start was a game score 72, which was against the Yankees. And then he had a 47-32 previous to that. I would expect him to pitch well again. And this is against Alexander, who's terrible. He's not a good pitcher. But you're not getting value here. So you got to figure out, how do I bet against the Brewers? But you got to remember, the Brewers offense coming off of Arizona has been really good. They are sixth in offense or eighth in offense and sixth in offensive isolated power right now. So the one good thing I will tell you is if you like Scooble, the Brewers are minus 20% against an average offense against left-handed pitchers so far. So I think that bodes well for what Scooble can do. I think this is an interesting matchup too. This is the Astros with Valdez against Gray and St. Louis. And Gray with what Fangraphs comes up with and primarily what Streamer and Zips do. He's graded as a 2-WAR pitcher, and Valdez is more like a 2.7, almost 3 pitcher. And you know, just to kind of give you an idea, like Scooble's an almost 5 pitcher. So these guys are good, but they're not those great guys anymore that they used to be. But these kind of break these games down. You start looking at what's going on offensively. St. Louis got off to that great start hitting wise, but now they're 23rd in offense, 20th in offensive WAR, and Houston's 13 and 21. Now, of course, they just came off a series with the Angels, so you know this is a better picture that they're going to see today. But I kind of like what the Astros are doing here. The Astros are starting to hit a little bit, so I kind of like that part of what's going on with them. But we'll see. Cubs, Padres. This is one of those tie-on against C steals, and the Cubs have been great on offense. But I got to be honest, when you start to look at the offense, Cubs are number 2 in offense. Padres are number 5 in offense. Isolated power. The Cubs are number 3. And the Padres are number 7. They're right there, neck and neck. So if the offenses are neck and neck, you got to look at the pitchers. And Cease is the much better pitcher, and Cease is off a terrible game. So Cease off a game score 15. Okay, he's not going to throw another 15. He's going to go throw a great game. The previous start before his 15 was a 70. Cease has the ability to go out there and give up 1 hit and strike out 15 guys. Now the Cubs don't strike out a lot, so I expect them to put the ball in play. But Taillon's not a big strikeout guy either, so I expect the Padres to hit him. So I like the Padres here. Problem is how do you bet it? Because when you start to go and you look at the number at Profit X was 144. My number is 156. So, yeah, I'm showing value on the Padres, but do you really want to pay 144? Do you really want to pay 156? So these are spots you got to kind of figure out where you want to kind of put your money at. And then the Dodgers are minus 300. So, you know, I don't think we need to go into that game. You know, the Dodgers at 300 are going to be that way this whole series. You know, they play the Rockies. They're going to be minus 300 every day against the Rockies. Oh, Jeff, I can't hear you. I see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you.
You got to
there we go.
Hit the unmute button. I'm on Profit X as you speak. That Padres number is now down to minus 140. Little money leaking in on the Cubs. And again, that's that ESPN Sunday night. I know it's only LA to San Diego. It's not like they're going coast to coast there. I looked at potential Padres first 5 minus the hook, currently minus 10 cents right now. So if you're looking to get in on the Padres first 5, lay the half run there. The total for the first 5 is 4. Team totals, Cubs 1.5 flat and Padres 2.5 juice under minus 150. So they're basically giving you that 2-to-1 look, maybe 3-to-1. Who the hell knows? But as always, we're great to have you as the bookends here, back with baseball going, Scotty. Everyone knows to follow you at Webby20NMLB. As I said to you in standing room only here on Twitter, we can't thank you guys enough. Mr. Jenkins, Mr. Jay Berry, everyone else watching and listening. Friday was our scheduled day this week. I will be traveling Thursday to Albuquerque, New Mexico for a food truck festival. I'll be back late Sunday night in Boston. I'm going to check my marching orders on Friday, Scotty. If we can, we'll have another show Friday afternoon.
No worries, man. Like I do this every day anyway. So being able to come on and talk about it is great for me. It's gets stuff out of my head a little bit sometimes. What I really like, Jeff, and is I like your questions that you ask me because it makes me think about stuff in different ways sometimes. But I really like what the people ask. So we do get some conversation on here from time to time, guys. Look. If you want me to break down a game specifically, if you have questions about a pitcher, if you have questions about different things, just throw them out there. Like I have all the information already done. It's just a matter of them going to research certain things for you at the time. So if you have questions, if you want to know certain things about some of the stuff I do or how I handle stuff, just ask. I mean, that's what I really like. So if we get into some of this, that'd be awesome too. We had some of that on Friday, so that was great.
From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Investor, one and only Scottie Webb at Webby20 MLB. Around 4:00, the closing bell with Riley Magnuson. Keep an eye on our timeline if we move it up or move it back a little. Re-entry Monday, we'll do some UFC, we'll do some Masters talk, of course, but what we will also do is get yourself set up for the MLB and whatever else is going on tonight in the sports market. So everyone, have a great day. Enjoy your morning, and we will see you soon.